Today we take a look at Walther's Cornerstone kit, the Water Street Freight Terminal in N-scale. So let's take a look at what's inside the box. One big sprue of clear for all the windows. All the roof parts are on one black sprue. I'll just paint these shades of dark gray. True black is just too harsh for a small scale. 2 sprues of brick building walls, all in some weird brown color. Lots of brick details, so I'm not sure why they chose this ochre-like brown color. I'm going to go with more traditional red-orange brick you find all over the Northeast anyhow. A couple of gray sprues that have the base plate, the roof trusses, wall toppers, the dock doors, and the docks. The base plates are all getting cement color painted anyhow, as are the wall toppers. Dock doors are getting painted aluminum. The docks themselves are getting a wood color painted all over them. And I may add a cement color to the base of the docks to make it look like they're planked over a cement dock. Finally, 1 green sprue of windows and doors. These will be repainted a dark US green color so that I can tie them into the roof trusses that came in gray but need to be the same color. So I know they're green, but I'm going to repaint everything the same shade of green. Here are some basic decals for signage and such. I like the inclusion of the Pennsylvania Railroad. And the typical Walther's instructions, not bad, but not great either. My suggestion is to read through them several times, just to catch all the finer points they have on assembly order and such. The first step, as always, is to wash all the sprues in warm soapy water and get them primed and base colored with the airbrush. The painting is straightforward, but I wanted to touch on the brickwork. Note the concrete color on the building foundation. It makes a nice contrast to the red brick, much better than that brown color. What I want to demonstrate for you is how to get the mortar lines colored with this really fine details. I really like the final look as it fills in the lines and dulls down the bright red color. The first part of this technique is to just give all the parts that need mortar joints filled a solid gloss varnish. For the mortar color, I chose to mix a pale sand and a buff color in roughly 50-50. This kind of gives you a yellowish off-white. You don't want a pure white. That'll just be too stark. And as you can see, the second part of this technique is to highly dilute the paint. I used mostly water with a drop or two of flow improver. The flow improver helps to keep the paint from breaking and allows for a much slower dry time. And the slow dry time is fairly critical to this part. Now comes the fun part. Just load up your favorite big brush with the diluted paint and touch it to the brick area and watch the magic happen. You can push the diluted paint around the brick surface to keep it moving, but the key is the gloss varnish breaking down the surface tension so that the paint moves into the recesses between the bricks. This should also work for HO scale and some bigger scales. I've used something similar like this even in 1/35th scale model building. I also left all the parts attached to the sprue, as the attachment location points would be covered up with other parts. So it was easier to handle and paint and store them to dry a little bit. Here you can see the advantage of the flow improver. I was able to paint all the brick surfaces without the paint fully drying. This allowed me to come back in with a clean, slightly damp cotton bud and mop up the excess paint. After an overnight dry and cure, I came back with the original red color and gave everything a very light dry brush to help with the color variation. The warehouse sides of the building has lots and lots of roll-up doors. The key is to scrape the excess paint from the lip that will glue to the interior of the building walls. The other side only has 3, but they're all the same doors, same process. Then it's as simple as repeating the process for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more doors on this side. And here are all the walls for the office building. The window frames and doors were added from the back side with a touch of cement, just like the warehouse roll-up doors. The basic box shape was squared up using my 1, 2, 3 blocks and cemented at the corners. One assembly note is that you need to glue the 2 shorter walls to one of the longer walls, then add the roof before adding the last long wall. This is one of those quirky things you need to be aware of from the instructions. I found it easier to glue all the connection points with the build upside down. It's just a matter of access. Also, I didn't add the clear plastic windows at this point, as there's a lot of plastic cement curing and off-gassing inside this closed-off box. While the office building was setting up, I came back to the warehouse and added the two little clear windows in place with tacky glue. This is the same way I put the office windows in, with just a little trickier since the walls were all assembled. I just started at the topmost windows and worked my way down to the bottom basement windows. It actually was pretty easy and quick. For this larger structure, the warehouse, I just used the base plate as a gluing guide, as the large overhanging roof structure would cover up most of the structure anyhow. But before we can add the roof, we have to place all the trusses in place. The instructions make it clear which set goes on which side of the warehouse. Basically, once you set the center truss, which is the center interior roof support as well as the exterior supports, it becomes obvious which side gets the longer trusses and which side gets the shorter trusses. Once they are all in place, the two halves of the roofs can be glued up. Just remember to scrape any excess paint from the contact point so the glue can make a solid bond. Also note, the roof pieces do not glue up very nice. There is really no good connection point. Just another flaw with this kit, in my opinion. It would have been nicer if they had a cap or a lock that you could lock the two pieces into one another and have a solid join. Now we can glue all the finishing bits to both buildings. The warehouse has those 7 cement toppers, and you have to make sure you keep the correct sizes in order so they fit correctly. The office building has 4 corner caps, 8 center caps, plus 11 caps for the in-between on the decorative columns, and 1 long cap for the rear of the building. There are also several vents, 1 chimney for this flat roof, as well as the maintenance door, which I painted fire engine red just to break up all the green windows. Also, I lost one of those vents to the carpet monster, so I just enlarged the hole to accept the round plastic rod that I painted the same gunmetal color as the other vents and glued it in place. Lastly, we need to attach the docks. The warehouse docks and ramps went on well with a small drop of glue to the top of the little piles that they sit on. The office building single dock also attached fine, but the alignment of the two buildings is not great. I understand that maybe they wanted the user to have the option of separating 2 buildings, which the instructions do not call out. But if they are meant to be a single unit, the 2 base plates do not allow this to be a smooth transition. Also, the warehouse roof has a cutout for the office building to sit flush into. So it would look kind of funny if you split the warehouse from the office building with this little cutout for a building that's supposed to be attached to the warehouse. You can see that there is a sizable gap between the two. I thought about adding a steel forklift plate between the 2 mismatched docks, or just removing the dock from the office building altogether. When I removed the office dock, I was able to get a better fit. It's not a perfect join, but it's much better than it was before. The final product looked good enough that I moved on to weathering. Some light weathering was added to the roofs, and finally we added a tinfoil American flag to the warehouse flagpole. Nothing says America like a tinfoil flag. The ultimate plans for this kit are to share a siding with the coal and fuel distributor on the eastern end of the layout. For now, I have all the building kits that I bought when I started this project built and ready to be added to the layout, which I hope will be in the next month or so. And with that, I'll just say happy model railroading.